It's often been remarked that CEOs live in a different reality. Wendy's surge pricing confirmed it. They tried to make fairy tales come to life, just not the handsome prince variety normal people think of. Fortunately, normal people reminded them that trolls, bridge trolls, are unpopular. While they publicly backed away from their marketing fiasco, I expect they are going to quietly continue to experiment with surge pricing because with digital menu boards, prices can go up just as easily as they can go down. And I don't buy their excuse. People understood exactly what experimentation and surge pricing is about because business class has made their contempt for the public quite clear. A contempt that is readily and repeatedly communicated when they insist working stiffs bankroll their lavish compensation packages and low Earth orbit joyrides by working 2 or 3 jobs, then asking us to surrender our earnings at their retail cash registers, all the while sneering that we lack the self-discipline to forego lattes and hamburgers to save up for a down payment, which at the going right would require 300 years to amass. But the topic of surge pricing, what is more accurately referred to as dynamic pricing, bears more discussion here because this kind of pricing is increasingly prevalent. Surge pricing itself is not uniformly objectionable. It's just one flavor of flexible pricing humans have engaged in down the ages. What we consider the familiar, that is, a fixed price tag, is sort of an innovation. And before the advent of fixed pricing, retail prices were arrived at through bargaining. We also know that as haggling. Other forms of flexible pricing, like auctions, are still quite prevalent, depending on what part of the economy you're looking at. So the standard pricing we're so familiar with came to predominate retail in the wake of the Industrial Revolution as product offerings proliferated and store chains emerged. Bargaining just became a logistics nightmare. There were a lot more products to keep track of, which meant that the store clerks had to be trained to understand what those prices are. And then you had to communicate all that to multiple stores. It's, before a computer, before the internet, this sort of thing would have presented, or did present, a real problem. The fixed price system also gave customers a more streamlined shopping experience, especially for wealthier clientele who might have viewed haggling as a chore or even beneath them. But it did allow corporations to focus on volume sales, and before computers and the internet, businesses were much better off setting fixed prices. So this sort of sets the framework for our mental expectations and set point in the retail market. But I think we all know that not everything exists in a retail environment. And this is where flexible pricing reemerges. Something like surge pricing has its utility. It can be very useful when applied to traffic congestion or electricity use during peak hours because it's a useful tool to moderate demand in circumstances where expanding capacity is undesirable or impossible to meet peak demand. Sort of like rush hour. You really don't want to have to build 10 more bridges just to accommodate traffic in the morning and evening. And I want to point out here that surge pricing can be acceptable because the public will know when the charges are applied. We all know when rush hour kicks in. In other circumstances, we tend to tolerate this kind of pricing, such as with travel, hotels, or entertainment events. But again, we know the ground rules. These kinds of businesses rent out fixed accommodations, be they concert seats or hotel rooms. In off-peak hours, prices go down. In high-demand periods, prices go up. But these rules and tolerance evaporates when we face an establishment which rewards our interest and regular custom with higher prices depending on when we show up for a product they produce on demand. Instead of anticipating and servicing demand as it arrives, they jack prices. They've relieved themselves of the discipline of paying attention to the market. And people who don't have flexible lunch hour are simply thrown over a barrel. And chain grocery stores have played sort of a not quite so fixed price game for some time as well. The prices set on shelves are not at all uniform. There's the standard price, and then a discounted price offered to those who are members of the chain's loyalty program. The chain gains access to people's shopping habits. It can sell their data, and it uses that data to manipulate them into spending more money. But retail surge pricing is a large departure from what had been business practice for many decades. Companies set a standard price for goods, usually with a low markup, and made profits by selling at volume. This was billed for years as capitalism's virtue, providing abundant goods at a modest markup. But one of the consequences of a fixed price system is it tends to breed take it or leave it environment. People get used to swallowing whatever price is handed to them. And this is in contrast to haggling or auctions, which are, I think, a pure form of price discovery. A buyer and a seller arrives at a price to exchange with every time they get together. But this universal price tag has suffered a silent death as tech has granted retailers like Amazon or travel booking agencies the ability to track inventory, demand, competition prices, customers in great detail. This has granted them superior market knowledge over their suppliers and customers. And as with the case with Amazon, we may arrive at a time where we walk through a storefront. You and I may never see the same price. So, while flexible pricing, as we want to call it, has been the norm throughout human history, this is not the kind of price discovery that was embodied in bargaining or auctions talked about in historical economics, because suppliers and customers are operating in the dark and prices are being dictated by a platform middleman. So this brave new world of flexible pricing is a very different animal than its previous incarnations, because Amazon, grocery, and fast food chains hold nearly all the cards. And in particular, restaurants like Wendy's with the electronic menu board now put themselves in the position of simply bumping the price up a notch for us walking through their door. This is after we've already expended the effort arriving at their storefront. And it doesn't sit well. It doesn't sit well with me, and it shouldn't sit well with anybody. That's rightfully why people dissuaded Wendy's from at least publicly engaging in this little experiment. But all the large platforms and chains are all going to strive to figure out how to make us accept flexible pricing on their terms, not ours.